I am in the protect my peace decade of my life. Choosing peace isn't always the easy path, and I don't get it right all of the time. But I am learning where I'm leaking my energy and what areas I really need to improve on. Hey, this is Tracy with Tracy Talks. Welcome. Can you do me a favor? Can you hit the subscribe button? It really helps me out. Thanks. The interesting thing about peace is it's not an avoidance of conflict. I consider peace to be this state of mind where I don't experience a lot of resistance. I don't experience a lot of internal struggle. But it's not to say that this path is one without conflict, that conflict is a necessary part of my life to maintain my peace. And I think that's one of the biggest misconceptions that people have is someone who lives in a state of peace is avoiding conflict. But it's really the exact opposite of that. There are times where I have to say things that people don't want to hear to set a boundary. I have to say things to people who appear to be attacking me, my choices, my lifestyle, or what I'm doing. My everyday peace and how I live and what is a priority to me requires that I be vigilant with how I show up in the world. There have been times in my life where I have practiced this avoidance of conflict, that I was trying to maintain peace without getting angry or upset. And I was just trying to be in this happy, jovial space and just let things roll off of me. And so it was this way of like, I'm not going to get in a fight with anybody. I'm just going to smile and nod and just let things go when people make comments or when something happens. That this non-confrontational belief is that, the world comes back around, and if we give all of this good energy out, then we're going to get all of this good energy back in. And it's really just crap. It's bullshit. I don't believe that we're here to avoid all conflict. And there are people in the world and in our life and in our everyday life that we know that each of us has somebody that pops into their head that is always trying to make a grab. They're trying to get more than their share, and they're like expanding their world. And sometimes they do it in these small little ways. Like you have two people sharing a closet, and you've divided the closet in half. And then little by little, this person just starts to move like one item over, and then a pair of shoes and a belt. And then before you know it, your half of the closet is just consumed by this other person's stuff. And there were times where this idea that I needed to maintain peace meant that I couldn't say anything. Because when you say things, what happens? There's usually an argument. There's usually a blow up and somebody gets mad and I just have so much stuff and I just need more closet space, and you're not using your closet space anyway, so why does it matter? And you have this big, huge argument. And there's this belief that we can't have the arguments because if I am a peaceful person, then I just have to let things roll off of me. And I've realized that that doesn't work for me. I don't know if it works for you, but it doesn't work for me. That for me to stay in this healthy mindset, and I've learned that I have to have those moments where I have to set boundaries. I have to say no. Because when I don't, discuss how I feel when I don't say the things, then they cycle through my head and they're on a loop, and I get frustrated and I get this internal anguish, and I'm angry and I'm irritated, and it just stews inside of me. And I don't have peace. And I've learned through a lot of my conflicts that it's important for someone like me to say the words. I am only going to have peace if I say, no, get your things out of my half of the closet. You don't get to just take over. You don't get to just move in. You don't just get to dominate the whole event, the whole party. You don't get to dominate the whole life. You don't get to dominate the whole evening. And there are probably people out there who can truly just avoid conflict and have peace. And there are some people who can just allow things to flow off of them easily. And that's not me. I think there's a few more people out there like me who have been trying to hold things in and avoid conflict. And it's not getting you the peace that you really do want. And what's interesting is, when we've been in a family and we have family dynamics, or we've been in long-term relationships where these little situations come up, and they come up often. And there's a lot of us who've had history of being people pleasers, and we just really don't want to start the fight. And we stuff it down and we hide it away in a closet inside of us. But when we've done that for 30, 40 years, there's a lot of stuff that we now have to let out. Like, it doesn't just disappear when we stuff that frustration down. It doesn't just magically go poof and it's gone. And now after I've stuffed things down for 30 years, they don't just come out in nice little sentences. Like when you're having a conversation with somebody and you really just want to say, no, I don't agree with you, but you don't. And you've done that for so long, it usually doesn't come out in this nice little sweet sentence of, I really don't like that. I know when I've stuffed things down for years, it comes out in a forceful, hateful comment sometimes. And then I feel bad because it was a really hateful comment. But sometimes that happens when we avoid conflict. And we avoid conflict until we can no longer hold in the feelings and the emotions, and they come out. And it can be a very hurtful thing. And I'm realizing that that behavior doesn't get me peace. The silencing of my true emotions, the stuffing them down inside of me, the churning and spinning of those emotions inside of me just makes me stew and chew on my own anger. And it makes me stew and chew on, why didn't I just say something in the moment? And why didn't I just do this? It doesn't bring me peace. Avoiding conflict has never brought me peace. That the peace that I have learned to cultivate does require me to say, no, I don't like that. I don't want to do that. Stop doing that. And yes, sometimes it's going to bring up an argument. But unfortunately, there are people in life that are always going to try to take more. They're always going to try to get more than half. They're going to try to take what you've got. They're going to want what you've got. And we have to be able to speak up, to say our true feelings, even if we have conflict. And I know this is one of the biggest conceptions that I've had so much of my life. This is one of those moments where I like to think of those emotions just as an energetic source, and try not to label them as good or bad. That these intense emotions that I've had at times and that I haven't expressed are just that, it's an energy. And it's not always in our best interest to go back 20 years and tell people what we really thought in those moments. But the energy's still there. And I think the energy still feels like it needs to come out of me. And that's where I have my toolbox of spiritual tools, where I tap into my writing and write things out. I paint. Maybe I go for a long hike. Maybe I go dig in the dirt. And there's many different ways that I work on getting these emotions out of me. And a good way for you to look at your own design is to look at your birth chart and see where your Mars is and what sign is it and what house is it in. And that would be a natural expression for you. Is your Mars in an earth sign? Is it in an air sign, a fire sign, a water sign? And then in what house does it fall? And that's going to give you keys and clues to how you can more easily tap into all of these words, all of this energy that we've held back, that we've stuffed down, that we try to just forget about. And sometimes that just doesn't work. I realize that me stuffing down my feelings and holding back and not speaking my truth has never gotten me the peace that I wanted. It was just the exact opposite. And I think the ideal place to want to get to is this moment where we can say in the moment what we feel and what we need and what we want. And I know for myself that that's been an area of life that I've struggled, that so many times that it's 3 days later when I have this, well, I should have just said that. And maybe it's not too late to go back to that person and say, you know what, we were having that conversation and I couldn't find the words that I needed to, or maybe write them out. Maybe that would be a better expression. But then there's times where so much time has passed and it's like, I don't really want to bring that up with that person. And how can I tap into that energy? And how can I express it in a different way and still get it out of me? Getting that energy out of me is how I get more peace. And right now, I'm at this place in my life where it's like, I am trying to keep that cycle going, like keep the energy moving. Like, I don't want to store up things. I don't want to have things that are left unsaid. I don't want to just stuff things down inside of me, because I've learned at this point in my life, this is one thing that I know for sure, that I have learned that it doesn't make me feel better. It doesn't make me healthier. It doesn't make me more peaceful. And this is my decade of peace. And my peace comes with having to stand up and push back and be vigilant and say no. My peace will most likely never come without a little bit of conflict. Thank you for listening to this episode of Tracy Talks. Remember to rate, review, and subscribe, and share with others who would enjoy listening to this podcast. Friends can find Tracy Talks available on iTunes, Spotify, Substack, and YouTube. Hit me up on Instagram and Facebook at More Tracy Talks. And until next time, we meet again.